All right, welcome back. This is Kathy Sipple, and you are here for Birth of a Brand. It is my own brand, and we're in labor. You know, we're not actually probably going to be doing the birth just now today, but the contractions have started. This is something that I need to get out into the world, and I hope nobody's offended by this this analogy. I am not actually pregnant. This is not my pregnant belly. There have been seems to have elicited some confusion on that topic. I was immediately upon creating this Facebook event invited to join, I think, Illinois Midwives or something like that. So yeah, maybe I pushed the metaphor a little bit too far. But in any case, I really do kind of see this as I'm really finally giving birth to something that's very intentional. It's very, very me, and it's come after, you know, kind of some long thinking. I've had my business now for just about it's almost 6 years to the day, and I started, quite frankly, without that much intention. Many of you have known me, you know, as my social media coach, and really, you know, this kind of popped up because I didn't know what else I was going to do. I, you know, had come back from a family health emergency in Detroit that lasted quite a long time, kind of blew up my real estate career, and had learned quite a bit about social media while I was away in Detroit. And so I just thought, well, let me take these tools, dust them off, reconfigure them, and poof, I'll launch this brand. So I mean, I gave that very, very little thought comparatively. It was just, I need to do something, I need to be productive, I need to get out there and, you know, just do something in the world. So my social media coach, I actually think I had the name or the idea to do it and the name, which I basically just did some research online. You can go to GoDaddy, you can go to any number of different places where you can buy a domain. I can buy one through my hosting service, hostmonster.com. But basically, I mean, if you've not done this before, let me just show you what that looks like. This was a 2 in the morning kind of a thing, just, hey, I've got to do something, wonder what's up, wonder what's possible. You can just go to any number of domain checks, and wherever you buy your domain doesn't mean that that's where you've got to get it. Now let me see if I can get one where I don't have to sign in. Try GoDaddy. I don't necessarily recommend GoDaddy, by the way. I don't want to be rude, but they sometimes kind of hold domains hostage, okay? But what you can do is you can put in a, well, let me just do my social media coach here. You'll see that it's taken. I probably put in social media coach, didn't put the my, and that was taken. You kind of have to fiddle around with it. You have to have kind of an idea and, you know, see what's available. It will tell you if it's taken or, you know, what some other suggestions might be. You could get the .org, you could get the .net, you can get the .co. I care about my brand. I don't care that much, so I haven't purchased, you know, every single derivation. But anyway, back in 2009, early 2009, that's what I was doing. It was just, how can I do this? And I bought the domain, I built a website, and I ordered business cards all in one night. And I frankly did that through a company called Vistaprint.com. They have very, very affordable business cards, and it's perfectly fine. Charlotte's asking, can I get the .org if I'm not a registered nonprofit? You can. You don't have to show ID or anything. It just might, you know, lend to some confusion. But yeah, you definitely can. It's not like there's a hard line that they're only available to certain organizations. I think it's just generally intuited that that's the case. And also, I want to say, you know, thank you to those of you who are here for the first time. Some people on the call have been here weeks and weeks and weeks. And if this is your first time, I am keeping the sound muted just to preserve the quality of the recording. But there will be times throughout the week that I'll unmute you if you want to share something with the crowd, or if a fellow attendee is giving me questions in the chat window, then I will, you know, sometimes convey those or wait till a convenient time when it enters into the conversation. But everything that's coming now, totally relevant. Lisa Harris is asking, how do you pick which one to use? You know, .org, .net, .co. I would say .com is still by all means the most popular, and that's what most people will automatically type in. So typically, for most businesses, you would want the .com if at all possible. To buy all the different derivations of your web domain is probably the safest, just to make sure there's no confusion about others getting it. But there's nothing stopping somebody. It's kind of like a Twitter hashtag. Anybody can make one up, but the domain name, complete with what's before the dot and after with the extension, that is unique. So they'll only sell the .com to one person, because that's how it becomes a universal resource locator, or a uniform resource locator, it's also sometimes called. There can only be one name per address, or the whole internet would be kind of broken and crazy, right? So anyway, back on that snowy day in February 2009, I just it kind of came to me fully formed. But honestly, being my social media coach, it's been good to me, but it's never really been my whole story. So I'm kind of giving you my background here before I launch into the birth of a new brand. But I guess this one, it took some family planning, let's put it that way. It's like that other one, I just was like, idea, boom, buy it, go. And literally within a couple days, I had expedited shipping on my business card. I just went into business, and again, it's been great. It's really been great, but it's kind of heavy on the tech, and I didn't feel like it told my whole story. So a few years later, I think 2 years later possibly, I just was feeling a real call to get involved in more environmental topics. And so again, without a really big plan, just kind of working from my journal notes and going on gut instinct, I bought yet another domain name, 219 Green Connect, and set up a site to go with that. It has a podcast now associated with it, and it also has absolutely, or close to absolutely, zero revenue model. So my social media coach was all about just sustaining me. It was, purely business, but it didn't have the soul of me, kind of the tree hugger part of me. 219 Green Connect had all of that, and I've kind of actually become almost better known now for 219 Green Connect, and, it probably would be good to kind of tie these things together. I've been thinking about this for years now, after I've kind of released both of these beasts. I guess 2010 was actually when I launched 219 Green Connect, because I can see here on the Facebook timeline. So anyway, 219 Green Connect, I believe I've got, I don't know if I've got the .org and the .com. That one probably should be a .com because, or .org, because there, again, is no real revenue model. Again, if you buy more than one domain, you don't have to have separate websites for them. Hey, what do you know? If anybody really wants to, you could buy a .org. I'm not going to, but generally, it's not a great idea to buy the .org or the .com if somebody else already owns the other part. Not because it's not allowed, but it can just result in some confusion. Okay, so both of those. Doka is asking, is that fee for a whole year? Yes, it is. Yep. Yep. And so, I've had some clients that got confused where, they bought something and they thought it was a one-time thing, or, they trademarked a name but they didn't buy the domain name. You can get into some murky areas. And frankly, with my new brand, and I'm just going to tell you what it is. It's CoThrive.com. And I think I've got CoThriveUniversity.org. Okay, wow, what do you know? I could actually sell this website. Is that right? I think I've got .com, or do I have .org? I'm going to have to double check. But this is what happens. If you buy a domain that, the powers that be think is something that accidentally went into the public, domain, all of a sudden it's not $7, $8, $9, $10 a year. It's, thousands or tens of thousands, or even in some cases hundreds of thousands. There's somebody on this call that I'm not going to name unless they want to talk about it, but I think they do own such a domain, and kind of interesting. So sometimes owning the great domain makes you really want to build the business around it. Anyway, just a little backstory. And then Doka has asked, what if you buy all the extensions and after 2 years you don't want the .org or the .net anymore? No problem. What you do is you just, on your host or wherever you've bought the domains, I think it's easier to buy them with whoever is hosting your website. To find out more about hosting, if you don't know what that is, I would actually refer you to my YouTube channel, which I've really been hitting hard these last 5-6 months, or 5-6 weeks. And we did a playlist last week called Improving Your Online Presence, and on Monday of last week it was all about improving your online presence, website, blog. So we talked about some of these things like domain, like host, like platform. So if some of this language is new, you can definitely check that out and catch yourself up a little bit. But in any case, back to Doka's question, what you would do is just I normally recommend that you set those domain names to auto-renew so that you don't accidentally lose your name. Or you could say manually renew, but give me a prompt. So they'll send you a little heads up, maybe one month or so ahead of time, and it will just say these 5 or 6 domains are renewing in a month. Do you want to proceed? So you basically have to take action. And if you don't want the .org or the .net, then you can just simply unclick those and get rid of them. I think I personally own about 25 or 30 domains right now. So it's not exactly a hobby, but sometimes I'll get a great idea, or I think it's a great idea. I buy the domain and then I don't do anything with it. So sometimes I do accidentally auto-renew. Again, I don't do a big birth announcement like this for every domain I buy, but it's the first step. It's like you start thinking about the possible baby names. Let's put it that way. Charlotte asks, can you change your host after you've already been using a domain? Absolutely. Absolutely. You own the rights to that, and it's registered with, I can't even think of the naming, entity, but basically, you register it with the internet, whoever that actually is, domain name service, I want to say. And there's something that exists called, let me see if I can get this right, DNS, I think that's domain name server. So regardless of who has your domain or where you've purchased it from, you can point your website, which could be hosted in a different place, you can point those domain name servers to the appropriate host and to your appropriate site. Okay, so you can definitely, they don't have to be from the same place. You can also ask to release your domain from one place to another, and you have to do what's called unlocking it. It typically will be locked just to prevent hackers from being able to get in there easily. But if you want to transfer your domain so that your domain and your website can both live at the same place, not necessary, but it does make it a little bit easier for housekeeping. You can just unlock it from your previous place where you purchased the domain and do a domain transfer. So you basically have to do a handshake at the releasing entity and the new entity to make sure that they both know you've given the approval to do so. Okay, and your hosting service can walk you through that, I'm sure. All right. So anyway, the name kind of comes after you've done some other work, right? You've had this idea, you've thought about it. Sometimes it's just you feel so lucky to get that name, you just want to pull the trigger, buy the domain, go with it. That's great. I also own CathySipple.com, which I don't think is really a bad idea. I had bought CathySipple.com back when I was a realtor. This has been now quite a long time ago, like 7-8 years ago. And honestly, I kind of thought, oh, I'm not doing anything with that. I'm not going to renew it. So I let it go. Well, then somebody bought it. And, they weren't Kathy Sipple. They were what's called kind of a domain squatter. So there are people that sometimes will just, purchase your domain hoping to get you and hoping that you want to get it out of hock. And they'll kind of charge you a pretty big upcharge for that. So I didn't take that bait. I didn't want it back that badly, but soon they got tired of it. They didn't renew. They found out I wasn't, contacting them and trying to get my domain back. So they just let it go, and then I bought it for, regular, low price. But, since you don't really know, I mean, who knows? Any of us could become authors or talk show host or whatever, so you might kind of want your name someday. So I'd say that's a pretty good investment generally. All right, so let's see. So this brings me back to, the current project, CoThrive. I didn't have the name right away. I just had the idea. And the idea was really, how can I blend my social media coach and my love of green and environment, okay? I was just kind of like, this is kind of driving me crazy. I've been successful to some extent with both, but it's a lot of upkeep. It's just a lot of work for a one-person business to manage not one brand but two. And frankly, sometimes I feel like, okay, I'm not setting a great example because I'm supposed to be showing people how to do marketing, and I'm not doing some of the basic things that I'm supposed to do to keep my brand, easy to follow. So currently I've got kathysipple.com, that's a live site. I've got 219greenconnect.com, that's a live site. I've got my social media coach, that's a live site. And I'm about to launch this new one. But the new one, what I really want to do with it is bring all of what I do together eventually. So that's going to take a little bit of doing. What I also want to just call your attention to is we've been using Pinterest. Now, I normally, for these kind of webinars that are really scripted, I will be doing PowerPoint slides and that kind of thing. But this is a little bit more on the cutting edge. It's not. This is not scripted, basically. I'm doing these things for free. I'm trying to kind of do a brain dump, what's in my mind, and just give it to you. So kind of because of that, it's a little, I don't want to say slapdash, but it's innovation. We're a think tank here. There's just not time to make a pretty PowerPoint for every day. So Pinterest has become my way to do it. It's kind of been my place where I keep my graphics that I want to share with you. This one I actually have made private or secret on Pinterest, which has not been the norm thus far, just because we're in what I'm going to call a soft launch. So I just kind of wanted to give you some context for this, what we're doing. If you're not in marketing, launch it might be something you only think of that rockets do, but brands launch too. And so, right now, we're in what's called the soft launch phase. So a soft launch means that you release your brand to a select group of people and you kind of get feedback, you work out the kinks, and you're not putting it out there in the world. So I'm not going to say that's been totally my reason for not making everything super easy to find, but it's partially been intentional. I really want to try this out with a core group of people that I feel kind of know me, that resonate with me, and that will give me critical feedback that I need. Okay, so you are part of the soft launch. The hard launch is when you actually take it to the public and you make a big deal of it. You run Facebook ads. You blast things everywhere. Okay, so that will be coming, but that's going to follow the soft launch. What happened even before that was a pre-launch, and so the pre-launch is where you're doing things like, is this even a viable idea? Is this even something that makes any sense? How do I know? Okay, so what I did last year was I had a woman who was working with me, Kristen, and I think maybe some of you might have gotten calls from her. We did some surveys. We just did surveys to people who had used me before, and maybe they had come to a workshop, or they came to my, or they hired me to do a, consulting package, and that was all going fine for a number of years. But then all of a sudden, it just didn't seem that fine. I found that people were only hiring me for a really short period, and then they were going off on their own. Sometimes I could see by the results of what they were doing online that, the bulk of what we talked about, or clearly all of what we talked about, hadn't sunk in, but I didn't have a reason to really follow up with them. If I just sat around policing, Facebook and said, hey, you're doing it wrong, or you need to hire me back again, I don't know, it just wasn't really working for me. I charge a relatively low rate, or excuse me, a high rate to work for people to work with me one-on-one. So I get it. I work with a lot of startups and nonprofits and, entrepreneurs and visionaries that sometimes don't have a huge marketing budget. They're like me many times. They're a one-person business. So while I'm appreciative of them investing in, the relatively high rate of working with me one-on-one, I know that it's not sustainable for them for the long term. So there you go. I'm kind of trying to bring in my green and sustainable. I could just see that, hey, they're falling off. They're not doing it right, or there's something that just changed with Facebook, and I don't really have a compelling way to get in front of them and convince them that this is something that they need to take a look at. So what I just decided, and I'll also just share this with you, for some reason between like mid-November and mid-January, those were my slowest 2 months I've had in 6 years of business. It was very bizarre. You kind of think if you're going to be slow or almost, get to the point of, your business dying, it would have happened in the first 1 year or 2 years. But for me, it was almost 6 years in, and I thought, what on earth? What is the deal? I've worked with, hundreds or even thousands of people, if you count all the people that have come to webinars and taken in my workshops. I'm like, how is it that nobody is stepping up that wants to pay me for my expertise? So it was a little scary. I was a little, I don't want to say offended, but I just kind of felt like, oh no, this is not good. And it was starting to really contract. It was the holiday time, and instead of feeling really effusive and celebratory, I was thinking like, oh, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I think I'll eat some worms, which I would not do. Anybody that knows me well knows that I compost with worms. I treat them very dearly. So anyway, what I decided was, instead of getting all doom and gloomy about it, I was just going to refocus and think about how I could do my business differently. One thing that really gave me confidence to do that was being in a marketing mastermind group. And with this particular marketing mastermind group, there is, these women are in all over the Midwest, and it's 4 of us. They are just awesome, awesome people. We had hoped to get a 5th person into our group, and she ended up turning us down. But the 5th person that didn't join us, her name is Shawn Driscoll. She's in a suburb of Detroit called Lathrop Village, and she has this amazing, I think, really amazing trailblazer quotient that you can take online for free. And for anybody that's thinking of starting your business, or even if you're already in your business and you just kind of want to make sure that your model is working for you, you might want to try this out. It's again, it's on my Pinterest board. It's on a past workshop that we did called, well, I'll show you in a minute. But anyway, she's just, I think this is such a great assessment. Basically what I found when I took Shawn's assessment, and I think this was back in, I want to say December or January, again when I was kind of slow. So again, looking at those slow times, not necessarily as a bad thing, but just how can I work with this, what can I do to retool and reimagine how my business could be. When I took this, what I found was that Shawn kind of comes up with 4 quadrants that you can be in. The horizontal line that divides the quadrants kind of tells you whether you like working in small groups or large groups. And then the, the vertical axis basically says, do you like specific information or do you like really kind of broad information? I think I've got that mostly right. And what I found was I was investing my time in building my business on the 2 quadrants that appealed to me the very least. So no offense, if we're doing work together one-on-one, I really value you as a customer, but that falls into quadrant number 1, which is highly scored for intimacy. So that's one-on-one, where you're working with somebody very, very closely, and either, one-on-one or very small groups. The other one was information package, and that's when you have these, downloadable ebooks or, buy my online course. And I tried that a couple times, and it just felt really, I don't know, kind of yicky to me. Like by the time I had an online course, I was already like moving on to the next thing because Facebook had changed, or Twitter had changed, or LinkedIn had changed, or just I had a new tool. So I no longer felt like that course was relevant. So partly it's me, it's how I'm wired, but partly my subject matter, I felt really didn't lend itself all that well to being an information-based business. So in any case, I had been trying to run my business basically doing those two things for the majority of what I offered to people. And I just didn't even know there was a different way to do it. But when I took Sean's assessment, what I found was that I scored almost all of my points in the innovation quadrant, which was more like doing think tanks, being on the bleeding edge, being okay with, being a little bit messy or being a little bit wrong, and then innovation and inspiration. So inspiration, you can think of people like Tony Robbins or Oprah. I'm not necessarily saying I'll ever get there or that I'm anywhere near on par with them, but it's where you want your information to really lift people's ideas of what they can do and take it more out of the workshop phase to, what can you be? What can you be about? And how can I inspire you to do that? And so I just thought, interesting. Okay. The other thing with inspiration is that on Sean's follow-up videos, she'll say, okay, based on your assessment results, here are the recommended ways that you can probably more successfully grow your business. And with innovation and with think tanks, you can do that via a membership site. Well, a membership site is something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. And so I resurrected that idea and said, okay, this is the time to really give that a look. And I see we've got some new people that have joined us, so I just want to welcome some new guests. Scott Mason, very great to have you. Agnes Laughlin, also great to have you. Christine Neal, welcome. Kobe Ball, great to have you. I just love it that you're all here. Thank you so much. And thanks for everybody else who showed up earlier. Okay, but so anyway, we're a little bit into the birth story. What we're talking about is all the ideas that kind of came together in my head, both the technical stuff, the name, the process, all of that. And, if any of this resonates too, I hope that we'll get some videos processed from a couple weeks ago, or that will be an ongoing thing that we do. I hosted a webinar series a few weeks ago that some of you were on, called Nurturing Your Co-Creative Urge. And so what I really want to do, I think, is be a midwife for other people who have ideas, who have things that they want to get out there in the world. I've done that individually, one-on-one with clients, but sometimes, when it's still an idea, that can be not really very sustainable to just hire Kathy until your idea finally, gets legs, or you have some breakthrough eureka moment and you can, move it to the next stage. And that's really tough if people are typically signing up for like a 5-hour package with me. We might do the first session and then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for the birth yet. I'm not ready to launch a website. And so then they'll literally take off, a week, a month, a year. I literally have one person that it's been multiple years. So that's kind of, tough to keep any kind of tabs on them or to get things moving along. So anyway, what I decided to do before I had the business model figured out at all was just to start doing free webinars. And we've been doing them again. I think this is week 6. I started just doing them again in a pretty small way because it was a soft launch, so I wanted to see, hey, would the people that I invite via Facebook want to come to this? I didn't really want to spend a lot, on ad budget, that kind of thing. So you had to kind of know what was going on. Somebody asked me, is it invitation only? No, it wasn't exactly invitation only, but if you go to my events, past events, technically anybody could have found it that was paying attention. But I didn't go crazy on it. I didn't, exhaustively try to get people there because, frankly, it was still kind of a dress rehearsal. So actually, I spoke incorrectly. This is week 5. The first week was back January 19th, and it was called Social Lights, Let's Use Social Media for World Healing. I'm a Reiki master and an Access Bars practitioner as well as a social media coach, so I thought, hey, let's get some people that are interested in just making the world a better place. There was some kind of crappy news coming out that week or the weeks preceding. I can't even totally recall now what it was, but I just kind of felt like I want to do something. I just really want to do something to counteract that. So I was inspired by this quote from Margaret Mead: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." And I basically did put a shout out to light workers, which I do interpret pretty liberally. Anybody that's just interested in being a light in the world. You don't literally have to be a healer or, be a Reiki master or anything like that. It's just people that I feel like are trying to set a pretty positive example. So on that one, I tried something a little different. I tried to, I made it free, which it was free, but I also made it a fundraiser for an organization that I really care about. So if somebody did want to donate at a certain level, I think it was at the $40 level, they would also get a year membership in a group called Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland. They're a group that is honoring my work. I'm going to be receiving an award for them in May in Chicago, and I really like what they're doing. So I just thought, it's a little hard when you feel like my business isn't going well to just go out there and say, I need to earn money. I did. It wasn't like I was living hand to mouth, but I just really like the idea of doing it as a fundraiser for another group. It automatically shifted me. It made me feel empowered, and it made me feel like I was part of something that, I was asking or inviting people to be a part of. And so a few people, some of them on this call, did join. They supported my work, and they became members who I think will be really, really great members of Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland. I was able to connect people and help them form friendships that they were really excited about. We did a Facebook group on that. We started a hashtag called Social Lights so that we could kind of see one another's content that we were creating and just kind of use that as our little private bat signal and, get stuff out into the world. So it was a lot of fun. It was really pretty cool. I had said if I hit a certain revenue target that I would get the videos all uploaded and recorded. I didn't hit it that week, so I couldn't actually make that happen. I was giving away my time for free, and I just couldn't see paying to get the video, recording kind of done and going in, into pocket for that. But it did make a little something, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. So that one, I have the recordings. I need to hopefully still get those done. And as I, bring more income into this project, then I can always go back and still process those recordings if people are interested. Charlotte's asking me about if Nurturing Your Co-Creative Urge was recorded, or it was also called Growing Your Idea, Support for Co-Creative Evolutionaries. That one, same deal. Didn't hit the target, revenue goal, but they're still there, so I could kind of try to still get those out of dry dock. But it was an experiment, again, no charge, and I said it's for trailblazers with ideas that they're incubating or have already developed but not shared. We kind of did almost like one part meditation, centering ourselves on the intention for the day, and then looked at examples and resources for how to actually make something happen with that. Some of the people on the call today were on that week, and I thought it was really, again, just a beautiful thing. There was one woman who was on the call who actually, she was kind of weeping, tears of joy. On Friday, I opened up the mics and just let people say, what was your favorite part about this week? What did you get out of it? And she just said, it was life-changing. She said it was the kick in the pants that she needed to kind of, get off the pot and get things started. She's engaged with, a couple members of this this new fledgling community. She's actually signed up for the Master Naturalist class, which is going to happen at Tall Tree Arboretum in March, and I'm signed up. Another member is signed up. So it's just like friendships have formed. All kinds of cool things have happened because of this really short-term experiment. But when I heard somebody crying tears of joy and saying this was life-changing, it really made me think I'm on the right track. I don't generally get people crying tears of joy when I'm working with them as my social media coach. If anything, sometimes they're about to cry because they've got a headache because of the technology or something. They're grateful for what I do, but a lot of times I'll just see eyes roll, or I've been told I give kind of fire hose level of information, assuming that they want to get the best value for their dollar invested with me. And I have used the fire hose approach, and I think sometimes to the detriment of my clients. They just feel overwhelmed. They get too much information. And so what I really like is just being able to say, hey, come to the free webinar. Watch the video. It's there for you. You can hit rewind. So just let it wash over you. Learn all the basics here. And then, let's do our one-on-one time. And then I feel good about that because I feel like they're getting they're getting more out of our time together. And Lee has brought up that he saw a reference on one of my many slides to Linda Rosenthal. He said his sister has known her for many years. Sorry for the interruption, but there are no coincidences. Lee, you are absolutely correct that there are no coincidences. I met Linda Rosenthal. I'm just going to flash her on screen here because she has been a very good supporter, but she's just not a morning person. She just, doesn't want to come to these morning things, but she has actually given financial support. She is also a founder of the group that I mentioned, Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland. She's kind of the Chicagoland, i.e. Northwest Indiana, and she's also the one kind of responsible, I believe, for nominating me to receive the media award. It's called the Golden Innovator Award, I believe, from their group. And if any of you know the futurist and author Barbara Marx Hubbard, she's actually the one who will be presenting the award. Agnes is on the call today. She's actually somebody that I met from the first meeting that I went to with CEC, and she's become a client and a friend. Carly Grace is on the call. She's been a past client, friend, now a CEC member, and has also been coming to these things. So it's just, it's feeling like when I look at the intersection of all the circles of what I'm interested in, and you go for that sweet spot, that's when you kind of know you're really on the right track. On one of the past workshops that we did, and I don't know that I can find it on Pinterest very fast. Yeah, here it is. We talked about this during, I believe, the co-creators, is looking for your bliss zone. What will somebody pay you for? What do you do really well? What do you love? And then what does the world need? And at the 2 or 3 area overlaps, you've got what somebody will pay for, what you do well, that's a career. What you do well and what you love, that's passion. What you love and what the world needs, vocation. What the world needs and what it will pay for, that's charity. But in the middle, there's the bliss zone, and that's like where, all of these pieces, as I kept experimenting with the soft launch, it was like, well, will people pay for this? I used what somebody in my marketing mastermind group called the PBS model. She's like, you're putting it out there for free, like public broadcasting, but you're just kind of saying to the viewers, hey, if you like this and you want more programming like this, here's what it takes to make this type of programming, keep coming in the level that you want it to. And I love that. I was like, yes, I'm not a charity. I am willing to do it for free, but I'm heading for the bliss zone. That's what I was trying to do all these weeks, is just figuring out through my survey, what does the world need? I had Kristen call past clients. We did a survey over the phone. I think we did a mail, what is that called? Oh dear. MailChimp is the email. SurveyMonkey. We did a survey via SurveyMonkey, which is the survey thing. We talked about that briefly last week. And asked people, do you need help on what exactly? And sometimes I think they just don't even know what they don't know. It's hard to say I need motivation, I need accountability, when they're used to thinking of me as like website or strategy, that kind of thing. So I love to do a lot of things. That's really not my problem. At the risk of sounding immodest, there are several things that I do well, but I've spent a lot of time over here in passion. I've spent a lot of time in charity, and I haven't maybe done as well as I could have with asking what does the world need and, driving it to the bliss zone. And I finally, find that by practicing all of these little baby steps and testing it with a soft launch to a small group of people, that I can kind of get there. You can hone in on that. And so I just, I feel like it's my personal mission in life to help everybody get into their own personal bliss zone. And so how to do that? Well, it's probably time I talk about another influence that was happening over those slow months of November, December, and early January. Besides just thinking about my business, I also was just trying to take my mind off of it, look at my other bucket lists, and to that point, I had gotten really interested in permaculture. I don't know how many people on the call know about permaculture. I know Charlotte probably does, since she's a sustainable farmer. Others of you, this might be a little arcane, but let me just quickly give you an overview of what it is. I first found out about permaculture a couple years ago when I was in charge of our local Green Drinks. Green Drinks is an international movement that happens in over 600 cities all over the world, and I was for four years organizing the one in Valparaiso and helping out with the one in Michigan City. The very first year we had a speaker who spoke on permaculture, which is I think what they call portmanteau, smashed up word, permanent plus agriculture, or some people have even just said permanent plus culture. It's not just an agricultural thing. But if anybody feels at all interested in this stuff, they've got a free online workshop that you can do with tons and tons of information. So I was kind of doing this. I think I binge watched about 30 hours of permaculture workshops over the Christmas and New Year's vacation. But you can go into regenerative design. I believe that's the one that I took. And it just teaches you to look at things differently. Instead of saying, here's my backyard and I need to transform it into the right yard to, make it submit to the will of what I want to do as a gardener, you're really encouraged to more look at the land holistically, or look at a situation holistically to say, what's happening here? Where is energy kind of coming in, or where are inputs coming in, and where am I really having to spend a lot of time trying to change something? And instead of changing it, you try to just maximize what you have and work with the system. So I'll just give you an example of what this meant to me in my business. What I saw, again, was the people were hiring me for a very short term, paying relatively a lot of money to do that, and then not getting long-term benefits. That didn't really make me feel good, and I would guess in all but maybe some isolated cases that they didn't do as well as they would have if we would have had ongoing relationship or ongoing working together. So I also knew at the same time that financial model wouldn't work to have both things happen. I also saw people that went through a lot of work with me on social media only to kind of find out that, what, that makes total sense. I want to do that, but Kathy, I'm either not capable of doing that or I don't have the time to do it. I've got the money to pay somebody to do it. Well, at $100+ an hour, I'm not really a viable virtual assistant, so I wasn't that person. So we would just end up kind of parting ways, and that drove me a little crazy. I thought, this is a good lead for somebody, but it's just not me. So I'm like, okay, how do I design the system that lets people, learn on their own terms, lets them understand these principles in a more relaxed, engaging way where it doesn't feel like such a fire hose approach, where preferably they get to do it together, because I feel like instead of them just learning from me, there's probably quite a bit that they can learn from watching one another's examples and one another's, ideas. And that certainly has come to fruition over these past couple of weeks. People have brought ideas into the group that I had no prior knowledge about. I learned all kinds of things, which was great for me. It was an enriched experience, for all of the people who participated. Everybody got a chance to, to shine, which was just really very cool. And we all learned something that we wouldn't have learned if this group hadn't come together. And then the other thing about permaculture that I love is the idea of guilds, or sometimes called companion planting. So what that means is when plants are planted together in the same space, they actually do better than what's called monoculture, which is more what the traditional model of agriculture or current modern agriculture looks like. You just see fields and fields of corn or fields and fields of soybeans. But with permaculture, what you'd see is, I'll just give one example, there's something called the Three Sisters. In a Native American tradition, I don't know that I've got a pin right away that I can reference. You know what? I can go to my own blog, I think. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. It's probably going to be easier if I just do this. Okay. So in the Three Sisters, what that means is that in Native American tradition, they had they had found that if you plant corn, beans, and squash all in the same spot, that they actually do better than they would if you had an entire field of corn or beans or squash, separately. And the reason for that is they each had their specific function that they lent to the growth process. The corn became a living pole for the beans. Okay, so it was a high vertical, strong, staff that it could grow up. The beans could grow up the corn, and the beans also could fix nitrogen from the air, which was beneficial for both the squash and the corn's health. The squash grew low to the ground and became kind of a living mulch for the corn and the beans. So it kept the roots cool, and it also kept out weeds. So, what I wanted to do was create a space where, we could have those kind of guilds happening. Where do we have people that have one aspect of what's needed, like the virtual assistants, okay? And we've got the ideas, we've got the innovators, we've got people that are ready to launch their idea, but either they need, strategic guidance from me and or members of the group, for input, accountability, continued support. And, quite frankly, I imagine all of those roles could kind of be interchangeable at some point. The other thing, too, that I kind of have learned in the last few weeks, I didn't have this written into my idea at the beginning, is that I know quite a few artists who are very gifted, and many times what I'm using on my social media updates have been royalty-free images that I download from like 123RF, 123royaltyfree.com. They're available for a pretty low cost. But what I thought was, I've had Scott, who's on the call, he stepped up and, just without me even asking him, developed logo concepts. Kathy Hare, who I don't believe is on this call but has been on several previously, she came forth and, built some beautiful, or donated some beautiful artwork that she created during our time together, that she shared with Social Lights, okay? So I had asked her initially, hey, can I use your one image, this one right here is hers, because I just thought each of these each of these words kind of highlighted what I wanted to talk about each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's what started me really being kind of interested with Kathy. And then she developed these other pieces of artwork completely for the Social Lights experiment. And what I am going to be working with her on is how can we get local artists to have an art marketplace and make that be part of the CoThrive project. So instead of giving, a couple dollars or whatever to RTF 123, how can some artists maybe make their work available digitally? It's something that's scalable. You don't sell it one time and then you have to go back to the drawing board. You could sell this over and over and over again and give, a good income stream to artists. So as I've stepped into my own bliss zone, I'm really trying to look for partners where we can build areas of overlap and create, win-win situations, which again goes back to the permaculture thing. Okay, so just, one more thing that was going on in my head. I'm telling you a lot of things, but I really hope some of you will check out some of these tools, because I think that they're not beneficial just for me. I really feel like if you go through that Trailblazer thing, and if you're at all interested in permaculture, there are a number of applications for people that don't intend to be a gardener in any way. And then the other thing that was happening, January 3rd, I had some time available. I didn't travel anywhere for the holidays, and a good friend of mine, Emily Russell, was offering a workshop on something called Access Bars at the Lotus Center here in Valparaiso, where I live. And, had the time available. it was a pretty affordable class, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go learn this. I just felt really compelled to go check it out. And what I learned is with access bars, it's just this really simple system where, you learn to kind of delete the stuff in your life that you don't want. So, Emily compared it to hitting the empty trash button on your computer. And that's a pretty good way to look at it. So the idea is, or the idea that I came away with, was that we're all a masterpiece. Michelangelo was asked, how did you know that this masterpiece, the David, was inside this flawed piece of marble? Because by some accounts he was given this flawed piece of marble that the other artists had rejected. And he said, I just took away everything that wasn't the masterpiece, and then what was the masterpiece was left. And so I just kind of wonder, how much junk are we carrying? How much stuff do we believe we have to do because it's a career or vocation, and we don't believe we can get into the bliss zone? So if we get rid of the stuff that doesn't really belong, can we all collectively find our zones, more quickly? All right, so I know we're about 9 minutes till. I am going to give you a little sneak peek at what I've got going on, because this is kind of fun. Lee is really right. There are no accidents. Once I bought the domain CoThrive, I bought CoThrive. I can't remember, CoThrive.org, CoThrive University, something like that. When I bought that domain, I got this email from a guy at a company called Nation Builder, and I just took a picture of it here. This was like, I think, the day after I bought this domain, or 2 days after. It wasn't long. I know you probably can barely read this. It's pretty small. But here's what it says if you can't read it. Hi, Kathy. I saw you recently registered CoThriveUniversity.org, and I wanted to reach out to you and learn a little more about your organization. I'm Kevin Coleman, a frontline organizer at Nation Builder, a software that helps people all over the world build awesome websites and keep track of all their communications, social media, and finances. If that sounds interesting to you, take 3 seconds and drop me an email so we can set up a time to talk soon. Otherwise, tell me to leave you alone, and I promise I'll never email again. And, the guy didn't even hyperlink his website or anything. It was just, hey, I saw you bought this domain, and now I'm curious, like, if we might be a fit. Well, I was just so intrigued by that. I thought, by the name that I bought, he's thinking that I might be a fit. Like, it just made me really curious. So I Googled Nation Builder, and I'll just go ahead and show you what it looks like when you get there, cold from a Google search. As soon as I found the site, I just felt like, oh my gosh, I'm home. This looks really like something I could work with. The internet makes it possible for communities to create anything, and that's totally my my rallying cry. Is I really want to empower people to do what they're wanting to do online. I don't tend to be a real political person, but there definitely is a strong political component that if you wanted that, they can help. But it really is about building relationships. It's about all different kinds of communities that are being built around kind of creative ideas. I think they've changed their little header here, but it used to say, for people who want to make their life a movement. And I thought, yeah, I do want to make my life a movement, not necessarily a political movement, but a movement to help people find their bliss zone and to use the internet and use, new media to do it, because it really does make this much more possible than it ever was before. So, it's funny, but if they had this thing instead of what they had before, I don't know that it would have made it quite as compelling for me. But they really have come through on this. Our business model ensures we do everything we can to serve you. They have been really helpful. They've been very interested in what I'm doing, and I'm still going through some training there. But I do have a site that's up. It's not totally complete. I haven't kind of ported over my real domain, CoThrive, without the Nation Builder in there to this, but I will be doing that by the end of this week. So right now, if you want to check it out, you can go to cothrive.nationbuilder.com, and you can see what I've got going on. This is, this is kind of the compilation of the ideas that I've talked about. These are the things that, I'm not promising they're all happening right now, but I'm saying this is what's going to be manifesting here. We'll be building up the noosphere. That's the thinking layer of the Earth. I didn't make up that term. It's if you've ever heard of noetic sciences, that's kind of a related thing. But I say, we're a conscious community of co-creators dedicated to aggregating, developing, and sharing the most uplifting and thought-provoking content available online that fosters spiritual growth and innovation. So that's kind of what Social Lights was about. Inspiration, networking, and business coaching for members with great ideas that need to get the word out. We'll offer free and discounted premium online training and coaching for members. Administrative services will also be available at competitive rates. I need some help with getting, that virtual assistant component in place. I've reached out to a couple local people who are kind of more conversant in that area, and we'll keep communications going. But that's probably one of the weakest points right now. I don't feel like I'm the person to lead that up, and I think it could be a valuable thing. Whether somebody either wanted to start a business, a long-term business, as a virtual assistant themselves, I really think that's needed out there in the world. Whether they're passionate or it's their vocation, might be a different thing. But if people can learn, viable job skills where they could get paid by, paying members, even to kind of have a paid internship until they know what their own brand is that they want to launch, I really feel that could be a good way to build up job skills and employment opportunities. I have some people in my life that I really care about that I believe are underemployed, either because of a disability or because of a previous brush with the law, let's say, or maybe they're older, or maybe they've just been out of the job market for a while and they don't feel like they can do it. I want to work with anybody who's curious and, again, doesn't necessarily have a revenue model where paying me to learn that makes sense. They can help out, they can volunteer with projects and get hands-on experience. And, I just say money is a form of currency. It's certainly convenient, but I am planning to institute an element of time banking to facilitate the exchange of ideas and services, so that I don't want money to be the reason that somebody doesn't become a part of this community. So support for great causes, like the one that I did for Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland. If there's another great cause that I feel like, hey, let's come together, we've got enough members that really care about this particular issue, then let's make that the focus of that particular webinar, or that, of what we're really looking at making change in the world. We can definitely make a lot more change by combining efforts together than any of us can do alone. So the very first series that got funded was actually 2 weeks ago, and I think I'd raised like $50. I said I needed to raise $250 to tape the whole week series, and we had one green organization that basically stepped up and said, we will pay the difference. We will pay close to $200 because we really need to have the series. This is going to be great for our own community, and we want you to do this. So again, kind of public broadcasting system. So because they provided the lion's share of the funding, that we were able to dedicate some of the time that week to looking at specific issues that they really cared about, and going deep and going really specific on what they would need to do to affect change within the areas of concern. I know we're almost out of time. So we'll come back to this, but I just wanted to at least introduce you to what is there. If you want to check it out, again, it's cothrive.nationbuilder.com. You will be able to get there through cothrive.org by the end of the week, but this again is still the soft launch. So because I've invited you, I consider you my close tribe. I consider you people that I would love to have as co-creators. I value your feedback. I think that you're innovators out there in the world, and I know you have something great to build for yourselves. So I hope you'll come back tomorrow and you'll be able to learn a little bit more about naming, some ways that I used crowdsourcing to get feedback on names. Also the logo process. Frankly, that's still happening, and people have given me their feedback and some votes online, and that's kind of at a critical point right now. I may not have the logo completely figured out by the end of the week, but I can go through the thought process. I can show you some resources and tools that I've used, and just some systems to get there. So I know we're right at 8 o'clock. I hope that you'll be back with me tomorrow. And again, check out the YouTube channel. You can get there, by the way, most easily by going to my Facebook page, go to My Social Media Coach, and then click Watch Video, which is up on the call to action, kind of a new thing. If you click Watch Video, that will ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd love it if you could become a subscriber, because then you're going to get notified of all the new things that are coming. All right, so thank you, everybody, for your comments. Roseanne said, great connection, nation builder. I think that's really great. Lisa said she loves the holistic view. Thank you. I really like that too. And Lee, thanks for being here. I'm glad you could join. Can't wait to hear what's coming of your great idea. I'm really intrigued by the things you've got in the works. Okay, and so also just something to think about. I don't want this to totally be the Kathy show. I would like to open up the mics if you guys have things that you want to talk about. Your own projects, because CoThrive, I see us all being planted together and co-thriving. I'm going to talk more about that origin of that word and how I came to that, what it means to me tomorrow. Okay, great. Hope to see everybody back, and we'll talk to you soon.